Chapter 1, She Traveled Through Time. When Kelly Morton of Manhattan awoke in a ramshackle cabin in Appalachia, she discovered she had become the tragic military wife from the book, destined to be consumed by fate. Facing her dying children, her parasitic in-laws, and the impending assault, she picked a lock, set a fire, and used the flames to burn through her despair. Carrying stolen cash and a bone-deep hatred, she fled into the stormy night, with her children on her back. This time, she would not walk toward the death written in the book. So hot. Kelly Morton woke from her sleep feeling overheated, thinking the climate control in her apartment had failed. But when she opened her eyes, she saw two small, motionless figures lying beside her, their faces pale, lips dry. "Ah!" She screamed and tumbled out of bed. Her hands didn't land on polished hardwood floors, but on damp, cold, packed earth. Looking around, this was certainly not her Manhattan bedroom. It was a low, shabby log cabin, eerily reminiscent of forgotten corners of Appalachia from documentaries. Yellowed newspaper covered the windows. Beneath the sill sat an enamel washbasin, with chipped coating and a rusty metal stand. Unfamiliar memories flooded Kelly's mind. She scrambled up and rushed to the bed, pressing her hands to the children's foreheads. The searing heat was all too real. The novel plot she'd read before bed, and the foreign memories now in her head corroborated each other, pointing to an absurd truth. She had traveled through time. In the book, Kelly Morton originally lived in Red River, Kentucky. She was sold by her alcoholic parents to the Carlson family in Coal Creek Valley, West Virginia, and married to their adopted son, Jack Carlson. On their wedding night, her mother-in-law had drugged their whiskey with an aphrodisiac. After that one night, Jack left before dawn, his face dark with anger, and returned to his military base, never to come home again. She became pregnant with twins and almost died giving birth. The in-laws constantly used her and the children to extort money from Jack, but gave them only canned food to barely survive, keeping every penny to support their own biological son, Billy Carlson. Right now, the two children were burning with fever, unconscious. The original Kelly had begged her in-laws to take them to a doctor, only to be locked in her room. Hearing the commotion, her brother-in-law Billy had pretended to offer money, lured her into his room, and raped her. Battered and bruised, she carried her children 10 miles through a blizzard to the town clinic, only for the doctor to pronounce them dead upon arrival. Shattered in body and soul, the original Kelly never saw the next sunrise. She jumped into the frozen Coal Creek. So, according to the original plot, tonight, all three of them were supposed to die. Kelly's scalp prickled, every hair on her body stood on end. She looked down at the feverish, barely conscious children. They were over 4 years old but as small as toddlers. Their ears and fingers were covered in frostbite sores, and their tiny hands already bore calluses. Pulling back the tattered army blanket, she saw multiple bruises on their bodies. Asterisk poor children, asterisk. She had to find a way to survive. Now? She could not die here. Ding! A mechanical chime suddenly sounded in her mind. A semi-transparent holographic interface materialized before her eyes. Congratulations, host. The Spirit Spring space system is now bound. Asterisk A system. Asterisk. As a veteran web novel reader, Kelly was all too familiar with this routine. A golden finger. She immediately tried to operate the system, but the interface flashed a red warning. Spirit Spring space is not yet activated. Unable to use. Kelly almost fainted from frustration. She tinkered with it some more, utterly useless. Asterisk A life or death situation, and you're playing games with me, asterisk. Kelly cursed under her breath. Benjamin? Emma? She gently shook the children, but they were too ill. Only the boy managed a weak twitch of his finger, lacking even the strength to lift it. No more waiting. The system was unreliable. She had to act on her own. Gritting her teeth, She tucked the blanket around the children and rushed out the door. A biting wind made her shiver. She quickly wrapped her thin, old jacket tighter. The main house, her in-laws' room, was secured with a padlock. Perhaps because she had arrived earlier in the timeline than the original story, Old Man and Mrs. Carlson hadn't returned yet from their business in town, but they would soon. She didn't dare delay. She found a piece of wire in the tool shed, picked the old padlock with practiced ease, and slipped inside. In her previous life, she was an orphan who had scrapped her way up from the streets before making it on her own and buying her apartment. This old lock was child's play to her. Once inside, she went straight to the mantel, felt along the top of the oak cupboard, and pulled down a tin box. According to the book's setting, this held all of Mrs. Carlson's cash. She deftly picked the lock on the box. Sure enough, inside was a folded canvas bag. Without stopping to count, she stuffed the entire bag into her jacket's inner pocket and replaced the box. Just as she was about to leave, snoring and muttering came from Billy's room to the east. "Sis Kelly, he. She clenched her fists. That scum, In the original story, the children fell ill precisely because a few days ago, starving, they had stolen half a cornbread muffin. Billy had stripped them naked, held them down in the snow, and beat them savagely, leaving them with a persistent cough. Yesterday evening, Billy had lied again, saying the town's backwoods doctor had gotten fever medicine. He lured the original Kelly away, then dumped a whole bucket of icy water over the children. He then forced them to go buy whiskey for him in the bitter cold wind, worsening their condition to this critical state. Remembering the humiliation the book's Kelly endured, fury shot straight to the top of her head. A creature worse than an animal. His existence pollutes the very air. She slipped into the kitchen, found matches, and went straight to Billy's window. She lit the pile of old newspapers and discarded tires stacked beneath it. The cabin's old wooden structure was highly flammable. The flames caught and began to climb. This fire might not kill Billy, but the east room was attached to the main house. Burning down these buildings that were built by sucking the lifeblood from her and her children would at least vent some of her rage. She turned and dashed back to the dilapidated shed on the west side where she lived. Quickly, she wrapped the children in the thick blanket she'd stolen from the main house and tied large woolen hats tightly on their heads. There weren't many belongings in this home. A coarse cloth bundle held everything they owned. She secured the slightly heavier boy, Benjamin, to her back with a carrier and bound the small, thin girl, Emma, to her chest. "Hold on, Mommy's taking you to see a doctor." Kelly pulled on 3 pairs of thick socks, shoved her feet into Old Man Carlson's new work boots, and sprinted toward the edge of town, heading for Old Joe's used pickup truck.